Hey Thinksters, and welcome to this quick video where I want to show you how to zip with a list output instead of this tuple output. Okay, so if you have two lists like here and you print the, first of all, if you print the result of the zip function of this list, the zip function pairs together the ith elements of the lists you pass into the zip function. You can pass an arbitrary number of lists and it returns a zip object. So you can see it here, if you print the result, you get a zip object. The zip object is an iterable, so you can convert any iterable to a list. So let's do this. And now we get a list of tuples as a result of the zip function. But say we want to have a list of lists. How do we do this? In this video, we will explore the most Pythonic way of grouping together a number of lists and returning a list of lists instead of a list of tuples. Okay, so the first way is basically we have already we have already almost developed a solution. Now we only need to convert each tuple to a list, and we can do this using a generator expression. So we call list x for x in zip. Okay, so this is like in our list constructor. Our list constructor takes any iterable, so we can even create a new iterable, and we do this with this generator expression, which I have just highlighted. And the generator expression consists of two parts. The first is the expression part. The expression here is list of x, so we convert the element x, which is a tuple, to a list using the list constructor, and then we need to define x, and we define x as be an element of the zip object resulting from the function called zip L1 L2. Okay, so this is like the first way of doing it, the first method. And if we print the result, we get our converted list of lists instead of list of tuples. So this is one of the most Pythonic way of doing it. But actually there's a variant of this that is even more Pythonic, that's even more concise. So we just copy paste everything, and instead of using a generator expression, we now use list comprehension with a square bracket notation. Okay, so instead of putting it into the list constructor, we put it into these square brackets, and this is then called list comprehension. And generator expressions is like the generalization of list comprehension, but list comprehension simply creates a list object directly out of the box, so there's no need to convert it after we have added all elements into our list. Okay, so this, as you see, is like 4 symbols shorter, and every symbol counts, and it's just as readable as the previous example. It's just as fast and efficient as the previous example. So this one I would consider is the most Pythonic way of doing it. Okay, but then of course there are alternatives. So one alternative, which I now just develop out of the box, is to use the map function. The map function applies a certain function to each element in a list, so we can, or in an iterable, so we can, again, we zip together here in this function call, we zip together the two lists. It cannot be also like an arbitrary number of lists. If you have n lists, then you can just zip together n lists. And then you apply the map function on each element of the zip iterable, of the zip object. And the map function will then transform this into a map object that applies the list function to each element in the list. And then we have a map object, so we need to convert it to a list as well. Okay, so you see it's even shorter than list comprehension. So some people may consider this the most Pythonic way, but I don't like the map function. And the founder of Python, Guido van Rossum, he also didn't like functional programming too much. So he said if there's list comprehension, then usually you should take it. You can Google about the fate of the reduce function of Guido van Rossum, which was an article written by Guido van Rossum, and there he told the community that he is not too fond of the functional programming stuff because it's harder to read, harder to understand for beginner coders. Okay, and then of course there is also an iterative way, so you can simply create a list zipped, which is initially empty, and then you go over all elements in the zip object, consisting of the zipped values L1 and L2. and then you append an element to the list after converting the tuple to a list. Okay, so we append a list object, so we have a list of lists in the end, and you can print the zipped variable. Okay, so now all of those methods, as you see, all of those methods result in the same output. So all of them are semantically equivalent, but some are more Pythonic than others. Okay, so I would prefer the list comprehension way, but I understand if you like this one, this functional programming way of using the map function even more, then you can also use this. Okay, so there's one more way with indices and so, but it's not the recommended way, and if possible you should avoid iterating over indices and then grouping them together. So you can, of course, if you don't know the zip function, you can do the same thing with indices, but it's not as efficient, it's not as Pythonic, so I will not even mention it here. Okay, so thanks for listening to this video. If you want to check out the article of Guido van Rossum, The Fate of the MapReduce function, then then I will give a link in the video description below, so you can check out the article. Okay, thanks for listening to this video, and see you in the next video. Bye.